Hello and welcome. My name is Christina from Empowered Creator. I am a mindset and conscious manifesting teacher and coach, and this is my YouTube channel. Here I talk about all things law of assumption, mindset, conscious manifesting, the quantum universe, and a lot more. And my goal is to simplify everything without the fluff. So if you guys like this content and you would like to see more of it, I would love it if you would subscribe to this channel, comment on this video, like it, share it, and stick around. Also, if you need help with your specific situation, I offer one-on-one coaching, email coaching, small group coaching, as well as custom subliminals for whatever needs you may have. So if you're interested in any of these services, the links are below in the description box. Click on them and they're going to take you to my website. With all that being said, let's dive into today's video. In today's video, I bring to you not one, not two, but 3 success stories, all from coaching clients of mine who have seen different versions of their specific person, much better versions, much more aligned versions to what they ideally want, after changing their concept of self and their concept of their relationship and who their person is. So this is what I'll be discussing in today's video. Stay tuned. So what are the stories? The stories will sound very familiar to many of you, actually probably most of you who are manifesting a specific person. They're going to sound very similar to the things that you're experiencing. One of these clients had a bit of a third-party situation, and she has quite a backstory with her specific person as well, because they've known each other for many years. They've been in a relationship for a long time, for over a decade, but for the most part of that time, they've been long distance. And they had this amazing connection going. They both felt it from both sides. However, they also had a lot of tension, probably some of it caused by the long distance itself. And my client at times would become very overbearing. She would become very resentful towards her specific person. She would become very angry at him. So she would be projecting things that were not necessarily very pleasant, and they would get reflected back to her as things that she didn't like and she didn't quite want from her specific person. So eventually she moved to be quite close to him. So right now they're actually moving quite close to each other. However, what happened, I believe a couple of years ago during the pandemic, if I remember right, her specific person also got involved with a third party. So by the time my client moved to be close to her SP, to be living close to him, he was also involved with a third party, and he was kind of dating both at the same time. So this has been her situation for the last couple of years. However, by her admission, she was very focused on the existence of that third party. She was very angry and she was very triggered by the presence of that other woman in her man's life. And so all her focus, all her attention, all her energy was going there. And while she and her specific person also had a lot of good times together, it wasn't all bad. At the same time, he wasn't showing any indication that he wanted to leave the third party. He wasn't showing any indication that he wanted to be back to being exclusive with her. He was citing all the anger issues of the past, all the resentment that had been looming in the past, and not wanting or not being able to get past those. So he kind of maintained the relationship with both women at the same time. So when we had our coaching session, we discussed all these things, and she finally realized that her focus and her attention cannot be on the third party. Her focus and her attention cannot be, as it had been, on her guy, dating that third person and just being triggered all the time and feeling bad about herself all the time and feeling like it's impossible to have him all to herself and all this kind of low self-concept and low self-esteem. So after our session, she took my advice, she implemented it instantly. She took her attention away from the 3D. She took her attention away from the third party. She took her attention away from all this triggering and all this tension that was going on within her. And instead, she started focusing on the two of them being together, the two of them being in love, him only having eyes for her, only wanting to be with her, realizing how strong their connection was, realizing that he couldn't have that kind of strong connection with anyone else but her. So that's where she focused her inner conversations, her inner affirmations, her imaginal acts. And what happened was that within days, she met with her specific person. And what happened was that he was showing up as a very different version of himself. He was much more affectionate. They had some intimate time together. It was much deeper. It was much more meaningful. He was much more loving. He was very much into her, very emotionally involved and showing a lot of emotional attachment to her. Also recognizing how strong their connection was, recognizing that she had a healing presence, as he told her, recognizing how happy and how complete he felt around her, and he told her these things as well. And all of this happened within days of her changing her state from someone who was triggered and someone who had her attention on the 3D and all the perceived problems of the 3D, to someone who actually took her attention within, who focused on her connection with her SP, and her SP reflected it almost immediately. Now, of course, this is still a story in development. That happened after just a few days of her starting her new practice and starting her imaginal acts. So now she's much more confident, much less triggered by the presence of the third party. And if she continues like that, I bet that the third party is going to be in the past very, very soon, especially judging by how her SP has been around her in the last few days. Now, the other two stories were very similar. They were both women who changed their self-concept. They changed their concept of their specific person. They changed, in one of the two cases, their general beliefs about romantic relationships, about romantic partners, about how people treat them, about their value in a romantic relationship. And both of them have seen very, very significant changes in their specific person. One of them was not seeing much effort from their specific person. He seemed to be happy to hang out with her. He seemed to be happy to communicate with her. However, he wasn't really initiating conversation. He wasn't really initiating making plans with her. So she had to put in all the effort to make plans and to initiate communication. So she was having a lot of resentment and a lot of doubt around that. However, once she changed her perception of her specific person, once she started actually persisting in the new version that she wanted to see, the person who initiates contact, the person who is decisive, the person who wants to reach out to her, and the person who takes the initiative to reach out to her and to make plans with her, what happened, and actually again, very, very quickly, within days, was that her specific person showed her a very different version of himself. And actually, what was funny about that, she wrote it in an email, was that his favorite team was actually playing that night, and I believe it was the final game of the season. And yet, he decided that he still wanted to spend the evening with her, going out with her, spending time with her, as opposed to just sitting at home and watching his favorite team play. I mean, how cool is that? As for the other client, the third client that I mentioned, she was having a lot of doubts about relationships in general, about men in general, about her ability to maintain a successful relationship, about her expectations of how romantic partners treat her and things like that. And so in her case, it was more of self-concept work and more of changing her beliefs to actually align with the new self that she wanted to see, with the new self-concept that she wanted to create. Once she started working on that, within weeks, her specific person started reaching out more. He started making plans with her. He started treating her with much more respect. He started showing that he appreciated her value. He communicated a lot more, he asked to see her a lot more, and so on. So she's also experiencing a very different version of her specific person to what she had been used to up until that moment, after she started changing her concept of self, her concept of relationships, and her concept of her specific person. So what all of these cases have in common is that they changed their perception. They changed their dominant state, they changed their dominant assumptions, whether it was about themselves, about their person, about relationships in general, about how their person views them, about how their person views their relationship, about how they're perceived from their person. And you will have noticed that all of them actually closed their eyes on the past and on the past behaviors that hadn't been ideal, in which they didn't prefer. And instead, they chose to focus their attention and focus their awareness and their imaginal acts and their state and their energy to the versions that they wanted to see. Both the versions of their SPs and the versions of themselves and the versions of the relationship that they wanted to experience. Once that happened, once the focus changed, once the awareness changed, once the state changed, everything else around them changed. Their 3D changed, their SP changed, they showed up differently, they showed up as a much better version of themselves. And in two of the three cases, it actually happened within days. In the third case, it happened within weeks. So none of them actually took very long, but they all took it very, very seriously to change their states, change their awareness, change their focus, what they were being focused on, and that's why they saw results. None of them dwelled on the old story, none of them dwelled on the old behaviors, none of them dwelled on past hurts and past triggers, and I believe that's why they brought results on themselves and on their specific person so fast. So if you also want to recreate your specific person, if you also want to see a different version of your specific person, focus on the version of your person that you want to see. Shift your attention from what is right now, which you might not prefer, which might not be ideal, to what you want to experience. And if you do that, if that becomes dominant within you, soon enough, you're also going to be seeing results. With all that being said, I'm going to wrap up this video here. I intend that this has helped. As always, I very much appreciate you guys being on this channel, watching this content. I love making this content for you. And as always, I look forward to seeing you all at the next video. Until then, take care and bye-bye.